Are you ready to enter the catacombs of Floor 5 and tackle the enigmatic boss that is Fuscus the Awakened Colossus? This trailer sure wasn't at all, with all of its scenes arriving from a potential flashback sequence with absolutely zero Floor 5 scenes. Welcome everyone, it's me Gamerturk, your best source of Sword Online information, and this is Sword Online Progressive Explained, featuring the Anime Japan teaser trailer for Scherzo of Deep Night movie. If you're new to my Explain series, what I do here is essentially provide you with all the key information from the source material light novels, and this Progressive Explained is brought to you by my Amazon and Book Depository affiliate links for Sword Online Progressive Volume 3, featuring Barcarole of Froth, as it's the Floor 4 boss appearing in this trailer. So you may want to grab that one, or just go one step further, grab Volume 1 and start reading from the Floor 2 story onwards that the movies are currently jumping over. And of course, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives on SAO. But with that, let's cast away the sly foxes spreading misinformation and get on with Progressive Explained. As is the case with Trailer Explained videos, I'll be talking about content that is yet to be animated. So if you do not want any spoilers, you may want to leave now, as I take the time to recommend you to watch another video of mine to answer the question of why are we jumping from Floor 1 to Floor 5 in this movie, as that is the popular question nowadays. But if you're still here after that lengthy one paragraph of a sentence, that means you're in it for the spoilers. Or maybe you're asking, how much spoiler could there be in a 20-second teaser trailer? Well, that gets increasingly more complicated to answer when said teaser trailer contains scenes that are not from the contents of this movie to begin with. This will be a relatively short video compared to your usual Explained, but it will have a lot of context. As I said, surprisingly, the Floor 5 Scherzo of Deep Night movie teaser did not show a single scene from Floor 5 itself, very similar to how Aria of a Starless Night teaser over a year ago did not show a single scene from Floor 1. However, while Aria had the benefit of showing a movie original real world scene, Scherzo teaser actually showed content from Floor 4, that is Barcarole of Froth, the floor boss raid of it in fact, and what we assume to be potentially Floor 3 as well, that is Concerto of Black and White. I'll fill you in with some basic backstory first. You've seen the Floor 5 boss already on the first key visual for Scherzo movie, that is Fuscus the Awakened Colossus with a multi-stage boss fight with a lot of mechanics involved. Well, he has received a significant design overhaul, the same way, Ilfang did for the Aria movie, to look a whole lot more intimidating, which I absolutely love. The mechanics of the boss fight will likely remain unchanged, same as Ilfang. And fitting in with the stone golem that is Fuscus, or rather Fuscus fitting in with the theme of the floor, the setting of Floor 5 is ruins and catacombs that is prime for exploration and relic hunting. Mostly an underground setting, Floor 5 has a very oppressive atmosphere rather than the very scenic floors from before, and that is probably enough information for us to move into the scenes of the teaser trailer itself. Based on that description I provided here, you can probably guess what we see at the beginning of this trailer is most likely not from Floor 5 at all. While we do not see Asuna's actual outfit, it's clear she no longer has the Wind Fleuret, indicating that's most probably the chivalric rapier she gets on Floor 3 that we never got a clear design for in the source material. The problem is Kirito's sword that causes the confusion here, as it does not have the same design as his anneal blade that he leaves behind on Floor 4. However, it's very unlikely that this is in fact Floor 4 with the main town of Rovia, as Floor 4, which used to be a complete desert with canyons, is a Venice-like floor with its waterways in the full release of SAO. Whereas the floor that is covered with forests that we see in this specific teaser trailer shot, it's very likely to be Floor 3 instead, with sparingly placed settlements inside the thick forest areas. So what I imagine to have happened here is, it's simply an animation error, not like Abeshi was ever consistent with his design of the anneal blade to begin with. The Floor 3 story, Concerto of Black and White, has like 3 different anneal blade designs and showcased in different illustrations. But yeah, these two back-to-back shots, obviously both from the same place, are shots of Floor 3, very likely, I may add as a disclaimer, where Kirito and Asuna are looking at the lay of the land from a vantage point, as it is very easy to lose your orientation inside the thick forests of Floor 3, especially when the mist starts kicking in. Alternatively, it can indeed be Floor 4, just with an extremely misleading perspective as a look on the floor, As you can see, there's a large forest area towards the eastern side of the map there, with a massive river going around, but I cannot help but feel we would be getting a little bit more identifiable landmarks if this was indeed floor 4. But if it is, it matches the origin of the other scenes featured in the trailer, because the rest of the scenes, they're all from floor 4. We have Kirito staring upwards before turning to the side. You see bars behind his back, which is a very cool detail that gives away where exactly they are here, and that it matches the fight scene that follows. He quickly glances to his side, where we cut to Argo silently nodding off to the side behind a pillar, which may or may not be some misleading editing going on. I personally don't think it's from the same scene per se, but it does not particularly matter, as Argo is supposed to be there with Kirito as well anyways. And of course, we get to see Asuna as well, which is the person Kirito is turning towards if I have to be specific. As you can see, behind Asuna, the bars continue off to the side, covering the entire area where they came from. Now, those bars do have a very specific purpose, specifically about the door that's right in front of them, or rather, what that door is holding inside. This is right before Kirito, Asuna, Argo, and some of their unshown companions end up opening the door with a huge flood coming through, throwing a lot of players out of the room. More specifically, the floor 4 boss room itself. The room that we see right after the cut, with Kirito and Asuna rushing towards the floor boss itself, of course. Now, we have just finished recording our Wikia podcast for Scherzo movie, and there Gishimanas told me that the way I usually pronounce the boss's name, Wythege the Hippocampus, was in fact not at all matching the Kana version of it. Well, he did pronounce some name himself, followed by sending me the Japanese name of it. I honestly have no idea what Ricky imagined when coming up with that name, so in the spirit of my insistence of following the correct name pronunciations as much as possible here on my channel, I will be naming the boss the Water Horsey from this point onwards, so I do not mispronounce his name. But yes, that is the floor 4 boss of Aincrad that has a nasty mechanic that requires the bars in the back to exist. As you can see, it's a relatively smaller and contained boss area, and the reason for that is that the Water Horsey likes to periodically flood the entire room. And with the door sealed shut behind the clearers, the entire room fills up with water over time, preventing anyone from able to fight and eventually drowning there. That was pretty much the biggest backstab for the players who were relying on their beta knowledge so far, as floor 4 was not a waterway paradise in the beta, but a desert canyon with a completely different boss. And that is also why NPC quests within the floors to gain boss room information has always been vital, because as you can imagine, once you are locked into the room with no backup plan and no ways to fight anymore, that is pretty much a wipe for your entire team. And the clearers, they are still in the process of learning caution is indeed the key to clearing Aincrad, rather than the power struggle they like having between each other. Especially because this was never really supposed to be a trap, but a mechanic players had to figure out and learn from the lore of the floor before haphazardly challenging the boss. Luckily, Kirito and Asuna were late to the boss fight, along with Argo of course, as they were busy clearing the L4 campaign quest that also granted them unexpected allies in this fight. The Dark Elven Royal Guard and a member of the Dark Elven Pagoda Knights, Kismel herself, along with the main quest NPC of the Floor 4 L4 campaign quest, Viscount Yophilis, leaving the Yofel castle for the first time in ages. But the gist of it is, the squad simply knew the trick of the floor boss and how to counteract it. While the door was impossible to open from within once the room was flooded, that was not the case from the outside, which is why they left Argo outside of the room to periodically deflood the room by opening the door. And that brings us to the bars you see in the back. They are simply there to catch the players who just got pushed outside of the room by the deflooding mechanic. And no, before one of you smartasses mentioned that they should just keep the door open. No, that's not how it works. The flood attack forces the door shut before it begins, and you can only reopen it from the outside once the water pressure reaches a certain level. But yeah, looking at the inside of the room a bit closer, sadly not much to say on that front. The boss did not receive an intimidation design update like Ilfang and Fuscus have in the progressive movies, although one can argue that the Water Horsey was already quite the intimidating design to begin with, as a concept. As for Kismel and Viscount Yophilis, I I really do hope A1 just pulled a Marvel for this teaser trailer alone and simply removed the layers they were put on in the project, because it'd certainly be disappointing if we're getting such a flashback and we don't see the Dark Elves there at all. Speaking of which, this brings us to the implication of only being shown pre-Floor 5 content in our teaser trailer. First off, I find it quite hilarious and a bold move at that to do your first promo of Floor 5 movie without any Floor 5 content. But secondly, and more importantly here, this means we are getting some sort of a flashback for pre-Floor 5 content. We dived a bit deeper into this in our SAO Wikia podcast on the Scherzo movie, which will be uploaded sometime next week, so stay tuned for that and don't forget to subscribe. But what I personally hope for is that the flashbacks are simply kept in the same nature that they exist in the light novels. Unlike the common belief, the light novels do have an immense amount of flashbacks, or rather reminder paragraphs, let's say, on a consistent basis. In the West, most of our novel series keep that to a minimum, but in Japan, despite being a series, these stories are designed to be somewhat newcomer friendly as much as possible, regardless of whether it's the middle of the story or not. So for example, the beginning of Scherzo of Deep Night literally begins by summing up Kirito's experiences with Asuna in the previous floors and how she developed over time. In every book that they come across Argo in any story, which is pretty much every progressive story, we do get a paragraph or two reminding the reader who Argo is by referencing previous events. When going into a boss fight, we always go through what kind of a curveball the previous floor has thrown their way and all that kind of reminder stuff. A lot of flashbacks that are naturally woven into the narrative rather than having a big block of previously on Sword Art Online chapter. I do have hopes that this will be the approach the Scherzo movie, as well as future movies when we go back to them, they will take. That will be particularly a clever move, as if done that way, no matter the order that is being adapted, we'll have a uniform approach across all movies that will also immensely help the less involved viewers to quickly remember how some relevant events to the current one transpired earlier, or, you know, if they have not experienced it at all, which will be the case with the jump to Floor 5 here, you know, they'll be able to get an idea of the underlying context and also be intrigued by it for future projects. But if you made it this far to the end, comment Water Horsey to let me know. We are now officially in the Scherzo hype train, so make sure to subscribe to not miss any of the future content. If you enjoyed this explained, do leave a like, follow me on Facebook and Twitter for the fastest news possible. A huge thanks to all my patrons and channel members as always, and until next time, stay cool.